Angela Merkel has been undertaking a farewell tour before she steps down as chancellor. Her latest stop was Kyiv to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Ukraine is a key German ally, but it is bitterly disappointed that Germany will soon open the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, linking it with Russia. It runs parallel to an existing connection, but doubles its capacity. Kyiv has always argued that the pipeline makes no economic sense and that Russia wants to isolate Ukraine politically and economically.
Chancellor Angela Merkel's last visit to Kyiv covered a lot of ground. The conflict in eastern Ukraine and the economy were important, but it was Russia's Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline that took center stage.
We consider this project exclusively from the point of security, a dangerous geopolitical weapon of the Kremlin.
Ukraine fears Russia could cut off its gas while keeping Western Europe supplied. Merkel said Russia would face consequences if that were to happen.
We've made it clear that we will advocate further sanctions within the European framework if this suspicion that the pipeline is being used as a weapon is substantiated.
Merkel has tried to balance Ukrainian and Russian interests, but that has frequently frustrated Kyiv. Most analysts believe she pushed for EU sanctions against Moscow over its annexation of Crimea. But then Berlin approved Nord Stream 2, which links Russia under the Baltic Sea with Germany. The pipeline completely bypasses Kyiv, which would lose billions in annual transit fees. Ukrainian leaders hoped that U.S. pressure would stop the project, but President Joe Biden withdrew sanctions after meeting Merkel last month. The chancellor has stressed Germany's special responsibility towards Kyiv, but for now, no deal has yet been struck to guarantee that.
Let's get more on this story now with DW's Nick Connolly. He joins us from Kyiv. Hi, Nick. Was there any progress made between these two leaders on Nord Stream 2?
There was surprisingly little movement from either side. Volodymyr Zelenskyy making no secret of his disappointment there, basically saying that the promises and the compensation offered by Germany in return for this pipeline being completed, the attempt to sweeten the pill, as it were, was too little too late and not really tangible. He said that that loss of income for transit fees, but the bigger strategic issue that Russia could afford to destabilize Ukraine if it doesn't need Ukraine's pipelines to transport its gas to Europe, that was an immediate tangible cost in the short term, and that investments in green energy or potential sanctions should Russia once again be aggressive towards Ukraine, that was all potentially unenforceable. So really a pretty grey, pretty kind of chilly response there, and no sense the Ukrainian side was really convinced by the arguments brought by Angela Merkel and her team.
Well, we mentioned, Nick, that Angela Merkel is on something of a farewell tour, and she got a warm public welcome from Vladimir Putin in Moscow on Friday. How did that compare to the reception that she got in Kyiv?
I think this is all a question of expectations. In the case of Russia, given what's happened over the last 10 years, from Crimea to Donbass and now the poisoning of Alexei Navalny last year, I think the very fact that they're still talking is deemed to be a success. Here in Kyiv, the expectations are much higher. As you said in your introduction, Ukraine and Germany are essentially allies. I mean, Germany is one of the biggest donors to Ukraine. Angela Merkel invested lots of diplomatic capital and time back in 2014-15, bringing those negotiations into fruition, making sure that this country was stabilized. So the fact that it has ended on such a chilly note, that she didn't get a kind of cozy farewell trip to Kyiv, is all the more surprising. But I think that it's also a question of tone. I think the Ukrainians want more forthright support, less diplomatic caution, more willingness in Berlin to call out Russia and maybe just essentially give Ukrainians a sense that they have their back and that they are not somehow balancing on the fence, trying to kind of play the intermediary between Moscow and Kyiv. So a disappointment there, but recognition still that Angela Merkel is someone who always found time for Ukraine.
DW's Nick Connolly reporting for us in Kyiv. Good to talk to you.